Okay, so hello, my film is lit people. This will be the first one for music and sound. We're going to move into that instead of doing the socioeconomic paper because I've been hitting it with enough papers. But anyway, so this week we're mostly going to be dealing with music and how it fits into films. Since of course film is literature, the main thing that the music and sound are going to help with is sort of mood and tone. They don't generally direct plot or affect plot directly unless you're looking at a musical or a Disney film, which is a musical for the most part. Because most of the time people aren't singing their "I Want" songs and stuff like that in general, regular movies that we watch, whether it's to name some of the things in class like Star Wars or Avatar or Matrix or Casablanca, stuff like that. So we're mostly dealing with tone and mood. And again, stories have a tone that helps create a mood. Within the literary world, one of the really, really great people at kind of doing this is Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm going to read a little bit of The Raven, just two stanzas of it to kind of talk about that for this comparison in this opening video. So it starts off. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more." Excuse me. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore. For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And this, everything from, for instance, Midnight Dreary to the bleak December, each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. The embers, of course, being the embers of the fire that's very, very low. It creates this very dark and hopeless moment. We're in the middle of winter. It's the middle of the night on top of that. So, if you know anything about simple literary symbolism, anytime we're talking middle of the night, middle of the winter, it's middle of the period of death, basically. The day is dying, the year is dying, the plant life around us is dying, and we even have the fire dying, creating this very low and kind of ominous lighting. Likewise, other stories that we read do a really good job of this. Another one that you probably read as a sophomore, I just read with some of my sophomores before this whole thing started, was The Yellow Wallpaper, which is the one about the lady that goes crazy. Uh, if you've read it, then that probably is enough for you to remember. But again, it just talks about that there's something weird, or as they've got the direct quote from this, that there's something queer about the house they're in. And when they talk about the actual wallpaper itself, this lady who's like on the verge of going crazy anyway is locked in this room with this really sort of weird wallpaper. And what she says about it is, quote, "uncertain curves for a little distance that suddenly commit suicide, plunging off at outrageous angles, destroying themselves in unheard of contradictions." These types of quotes, that's how authors create it. But directors, again, have different tools. They've got visual tools and audio tools that authors don't have. So one of those tools is, some of those tools are lighting and color, which obviously help create mood. But another big thing is, of course, sound. That certain kind of music, certain kind of sounds will trigger certain emotions in us. There's things in uh, horror films called like stingers and stuff like that are just little sound effects, and I'll probably try to play some of these later. They're little sound effects that are more musical cues that kind of just set you up. And if you take those things out, it really is noticeable what an effect they have, but you don't really notice them. Uh, Other things, obviously, you can get, you know, droning deep sounds over a dark scene. It gives you this very foreboding feeling in a horror movie. And when that jump scare comes, again, there's that stinger, that high-pitched, quick noise that goes along with it. A screech on a stringed instrument. Certain chords play on strings can give a feeling of sorrow. If you want more energy, throw some techno or electronic music, something with a lot of bass and drums in it. Some like the stuff that we saw in the dance club scene in The Matrix. So this is the way that they can do this type of stuff. And How do they do this more specifically? Well, really am gonna keep these videos short this time, so this is just the introduction. So we're gonna jump into that in the next one.